Welcome to Inside the Walls with William Pasquale, brought to you by Perner Frederick Commercial Real Estate. Welcome to a new level of commercial real estate built upon relationships and proven results. Good afternoon, and welcome to Inside the Walls with William Pasquale. Today we'll be speaking with Will Toms, co-founder and chief creative officer of Rec Philly, a creative co-working space, digital application, and creator community right here in Philadelphia. And here is a sneak peek into the creative gym known as Rec Philly. And here we have Will Toms. Good afternoon, Will.
Oh, man, William. Good afternoon, man. I'm excited to be here with you.
I'm excited to have you on. This is like, I feel like old times. Will and I have known each other from some other things that we do. And so this is fun. I know about Rec Philly. I don't know if everybody knows about Rec Philly. So why don't you tell us, what is Rec Philly?
Sure, man. I'd be happy to. So Rec Philly, I think the simplest way to explain it is through this example of it's a gym membership for creative people, right? So we think about our company in two pieces. One is this creative incubator. And when you think of a gym, right, you go to the gym for a couple of different reasons. One is to get your hands on some of these tools that can help you actually get your fitness goals in check.
Yeah.
The second reason you go is because if you don't understand the workouts to be doing, there's probably some other folks there who know a little bit more about the routines you should be tackling, right? So there's this education component. And then the third reason people go to the gym is the one we don't talk about very much, but there's this social accountability, right? The hardest part about going to the gym is going to the gym. But once you get there, there's a lot of other like-minded people who are tackling their own goals, which creates a community of folks who are all inspired to be able to do it on their own, right? So for us, it's this creative incubator, really all about making sure that a talented creative person has access to the tools, the strategies, and the opportunities they need to grow. And then partnered up alongside that, we also run a boutique creative agency where we're helping businesses of all sizes be able to solve their creative challenges a lot through the lens of experiential marketing and events, digital storytelling and content creation, and anything else, that our community of creatives can offer.
I'd say Rec Philly, I didn't, when you originally had told me about this idea and what you guys had done or were doing. I mean, I remember when it was up in the North Philadelphia side and you were bringing it into the city, and I was trying to understand the why of almost, there's co-working spaces like WeWork and Serendipity Labs and other organizations. Yeah. I wasn't sure how that played into everything in the co-working side of it. And I just thought it was so unique. So I guess the one question I have for you is, why this? I mean, with all this, with your skills and your background as an entrepreneur, why did this speak to you?
Yeah, so I think in that video you played, thanks for rolling that. It was kind of exciting to just hear that music. I haven't heard it in a while. But right at the beginning, the forefront of that video, there's that quote: "There was never a place for people like us, so we decided to create one." And that really speaks a lot to the why. Like you mentioned, there are other places invested in resource sharing, co-working spaces. But even as a young entrepreneur myself who would frequent, a WeWork or some of these other spaces, they didn't always had everything amenities wise that would meet my needs as a creative person. Right. Early on, if I needed to record some audio for a project, they didn't have a high quality podcast studio. They certainly didn't have a photography or a visual studio there. So as I was going on, I realized that I was having to adapt all of the spaces that I would work at for my needs, as opposed to something being dedicated and designed to what I needed. And to take it a step further, a bit more about our why specifically is we just really deeply believe that creative people deserve to have access to all the tools, the strategies, and a community of like-minded people to be successful. And for us, we couldn't find it. We searched high and low. And for us, it was about how do we put something out into the universe that we know would help a lot of people who are just like us.
And you went from, like this, what I'll just call it, creative, innovative space in North Philadelphia.
Yep.
It was a building that had its own interesting, its interesting characteristic, and all these interesting doors, and you just really kind of worked with what you had.
That's it. That's exactly it.
And then you moved into what I'll just call is just like, the absolute opposite. You're in the fashion district, man. I mean, you're in like, right there on
Ninth and Market.
Yeah, right at 9th and Market, and why don't you describe the space itself a little bit so people understand what exactly is there?
Yeah, so we started off at 9th and Dolphin in North Philadelphia, not too far away from Temple University's campus. And like us creative people do, we made do with what we had, right?
Right.
It was definitely the bootstrapped MVP version of our space, which was about 1,500 square feet, and that's being generous. Yeah. And what we did after, growing our membership base to over about 450 active members, we said, hey, we have a lot of faith in this model. We know that people need it. They're climbing 4 flights of stairs to get here. At that time, we had no heat, no AC.
Right.
So it was clearly that we were serving and meeting a need. So what we did after that was, we went and we raised our first round of funding, and we built out what is now a 10,000 square feet creative facility in the heart of Center City here at 9th and Market. And what's in this 10,000 square foot space is 14 private studios, from recording studios, photography studios, to mindfulness rooms, to movement studios and dance studios. We've got a 300 capacity venue space in partnership with Live Nation. We've got a retail store that sits on the front that really takes advantage of all the foot traffic coming through the Fashion District Mall, which allows all of our creatives to have the ability to earn money through their physical products they're creating. Right. So essentially, we think of this space as a one-stop shop for a young creative person to come in and literally be able to turn a passion into a profitable business by leveraging the tools and the education that we're teaching around direct-to-consumer entrepreneurship.
That's amazing. What a great place. Not only is it just a fun organization, and concept, but you really are impacting people here in the city of Philadelphia. Yeah. And, what do you see about, like the future growth of these creative co-working spaces, both domestically and globally over the next 5 to 10 years?
Yeah. So, that's a great question. And when I think about, our model and why it's been so important for us to build it, it does come down to impact for me. When we think about the innovation economy, we think about the business community, we love talking about innovation. We love talking about creativity. We love talking about bootstrapping. And for me, the most creative, resilient, bootstrapping, innovative people have always been artists. And I think, finally, we're at a place in society where we're starting to realize the economic value of these creatives and us as creatives as business owners, right? And as entrepreneurs. And because of the internet, our creatives now have the tools to literally build an audience online of people who believe what they believe. They have the tools to directly sell right to those folks and earn a living, both sustainably and, scalably. So for me, our vision here at Rec isn't just to be great and impactful in Philadelphia, but we're really working to perfect this model so that way we can go to build out 30 of these facilities around the world, right? To build an international community of creatives that can have the wherewithal to be able to build within our own community as independent creatives to help each other. Right. I want to be able to step foot in, a city like, whether it's Houston or DC, or I don't know, Shanghai, and say, hey, I can tap into a creative ecosystem that exists. So that's kind of where we're going, as a company with Rec. But I think globally, when you think about the resource sharing economy, it's only going to grow as well. I think for us, our model is very different than like a WeWork per se. The model underneath it's actually very different. And I think what I'm seeing from my perspective is, especially after the pandemic that we're, still getting through, the idea of everyone buying their own real estate is just it's gonna be different, right? Like in a certain way. But
Yeah.
what I know to be true is that folks are gonna need access to these tools. So resource sharing is gonna become, the new norm for folks that want to be able to have high quality amenities and high quality space, but not have all the risk and the costs up front.
Right. How has, since you brought up the pandemic, like how have you been able to serve your members in this time? Because obviously you were shut down to an extent, at least your physical space was shut down. How have
Yeah.
you worked with your members in this time period during that? Because I know you guys started to reopen, if I remember correctly, you are reopened.
Absolutely. Yeah. We are now currently reopened. We reopened on August 1st, which was interesting, right? We just got here, had a grand opening this past December.
Right.
We're open for about 3.5 months and then closed down for about 4 months, right? So as an entrepreneur, for me, it was about being resilient, getting creative. And the first thing both myself and my business partner did when we got the news that we needed to close is we got on the phone with our members, right? And we said, what do folks need right now? How are you? What's happening? What's important to you? And folks told us, listen, especially in the creative space where a lot of performers and photographers, a lot of their revenue came from being in person, right? And going outside.
Big
so
time.
for them, right? So for them to lose out on that, folks are saying, it's so much more important for me to have the economic education on how I should be building my business right now. So literally overnight, we went from doing what we usually do is about 20 events in person each month, teaching these business strategies. All that went digital, right? So we invested heavily in our digital programming, which has been very successful. And then secondly, we said, what more can we do? It's never been in our model before, but we said, hey, we're perfectly positioned between the creative community and the business community. So we went off and we built a program called Rec Relief, where we were able to raise about $25,000 worth of funding in the form of micro grants to put right into the hands of creators to help mitigate some of their loss throughout that time. So for us, it's been a lot of just listening, right? Just getting directly in contact with those who we serve and asking what they need, and then figuring out how we can uphold our mission through these new avenues.
That's awesome. That's really fantastic. What a way to serve like your community in one of the most challenging times that we have, and really turn it on its head and provide direct access and focus to what they need now.
That's it. And I'll say this, man, I think, for us, it's a community driven business, in the way we think about it, we're a for-profit company, it's about growing this thing. But it's these moments of challenge that we all face as a community that remind folks that it is exactly that. It's a community, and our members know that we've got their back through thick and thin. And, with all the folks who maybe needed to freeze their accounts, sometime throughout the pandemic, literally in the last 4 weeks, we've brought our numbers back up to almost seeming like there was no pandemic for us, right? I think a part of that is folks are ready to get back in the space, but a bigger piece is folks are understanding that we're here for them in a very real way. And I think there's this intangible that gets unlocked when you do those things that may not seem scalable, like calling hundreds of people as a founder of a company. But I think it means more than we could have known to our members, and they see that and feel it.
That's awesome. So one of the questions I had pre-planned was, what are 3 things that you could share with everybody about the start of Rec Philly, and that would really help other entrepreneurs and others that are looking to start their business?
Sure. So I think about this in a couple different ways. One of the first things that I'd love to share as something that we've learned, I think there's 2 ways to start a business, right? The first way that most people think about is, what do I want to build? Right. And they think about, what is the product? What is the service that I want to create? And then they try to find the people that need it. We didn't do that. Right. For myself, it was much of the opposite. I said, first, let's start with why. Right. And let's figure out what that answer is, what that real driver is. And if you're not at a point where you're really clear on your why, at least figure out who. Right. Businesses are meant to create value. So start by figuring out, who do you want to be valuable to? So for me, I was a creative, and I also cared about business. I was a creative entrepreneur. So I built my business with the understanding that I want to be valuable to creative entrepreneurs. And then what that allowed me to do was to get really deeply rooted in my tribe. And I said, yeah, what do we need? Right. And then I realized that a lot of my creative friends all had the same exact problem I had, which was getting access to those affordable tools, that dependable information, right? And those opportunities to grow. So our business then informed itself and we knew what we needed to build. So the first one is start with why, or at least start with who, and the what will come later. So that's
awesome.
that's my first tip. The second part is when you do it in that way, it allows you to get to the point where marketing becomes easier. And sometimes I think, we talk about branding all the time, we talk about marketing, but as a person with a background in digital strategy and marketing is all about storytelling. And specifically, it's about getting that right message to the right person at the right time, right? So the first piece of advice was about really understanding who is that right person, right? And the beauty is for us in the beginning of Rec, we didn't say we have it all figured out, we built the perfect product, take it. We said, hey, we have this idea, and we built focus groups. And we said, what do you think about this, right? What should change? What are your pain points? And by doing that and talking to customers so closely and intimately, they helped us understand what the problem was, but also how they spoke about it. So we started to understand what is the message folks need to hear and understand that helps us understand who's a lead and who's not, right? And when it's most important for them to hear those messages. So marketing got simpler for us, and we've been able to have a lot of organic growth because of it. So right message to the right person at the right time is kind of like marketing 101. That's the second piece of advice. And then the last thing I'll say is I'm extremely proud of the team that I've built within our organization. William, I'm sure you can attest to this. Yeah. We've got some really dynamic, talented, passionate, driven people.
Yes.
And they've been that way with us since before we were able to give them super competitive market rate salaries and benefits and all the rest of it, right? So the tip I have to share there is we hired very, very slowly. And when time comes, if you ever need to, you got to fire quickly. There's nothing more important than the culture of your organization, because you as a leader are going to be the centerpiece of the culture you build in your staff. And if your staff has any sort of front-facing role to customers, the culture of your community of customers is going to be extremely hinging on that of your staff. So be really intentional about the culture of your organization, because that could be make or break to the success of your business.
That's awesome. And thank you for sharing all of that.
Sure,
so the final thing that, I wanted to ask you, this is something that's tradition on the show is words on the wall.
Mm.
So what is like the phrase, something that, that when you think Will Toms, that's just you, what would that be for you?
Listen, I built my whole business around this one phrase, this one idea. So I got to just go with this one. And that phrase, those words are independent doesn't mean alone. So for all my entrepreneurs that are out there, I think sometimes when we think about building something ourselves, about being the top dog, we quickly start to think that means we got to do everything on our own. We got to do everything ourselves, right? And sometimes out of necessity. But what I've learned is there's something special about building that mastermind group, being able to find the people who are like-minded, but with varied skill sets. And together, you guys can be way stronger than any one individual. So I'll leave you guys with independent doesn't mean alone.
That's awesome. Well, listen, Will, thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to be on the show. Sure. And thank everybody for watching. And until next time, we'll see you later. Enjoy Labor Day weekend here in the United States. Bye-bye.
Peace, guys.